All right, y'all. Welcome to the Black Ribbon Warrior. I'm your host, Lee. Stage 4 metastatic melanoma cancer warrior. Every day is a new adventure for me. Doing a vlog kind of thing, trying to show my life through this journey. I'm in surveillance mode. And I'm still having issues. We went to neurological lady a couple weeks ago. She referred us to a couple psychiatric people. I saw both of them this week, and yeah. So one is kind of like taking over my medicine for that, and which I've been on for about 10 years, so that's been a good thing. For anxiety and depression and whatnot. So one's taking care of that. The other one is doing more of your what I would call laying on the couch. I mean, ironically, she didn't have a couch in the room. She just had chairs, but kind of one where we're going to talk about things and help try to come up with ways to, I don't want to say get around, but the brain's not going to heal from the trauma that it had. But there are things that I can, whenever I feel triggered or I notice things, and I'm starting to, my anxiety goes from, I'm at a 5 when I wake up in the morning, on a scale of 1 to 10, and then I shoot up, and it takes hours to come back down. There's things I can do to help bring that down a little faster. So that's where that's coming in. But pretty boring week otherwise. I didn't do much. Obviously, I didn't film anything because I'm doing this all right now on Sunday afternoon. But I will show you what I've been working on. I've been working on that book that I talked about with, I think last week I talked about Joshua 4. Let me just show you. So here's a quick kind of what I'm looking at. Starting off with an introduction, a little story about me, who I am, where I came from basically. Me and the wife. And then we go down and talk about a couple drums when I started barbecuing. Then we get into recipes. I'm doing a picture with a saying or a quote. And then, some recipes like this one has a story to go with it. So what I'm hoping to do is incorporate little stories about my life in conjunction with recipes that may or may not have anything to do with each other. But that way I'm kind of telling my story. So here's a little quote, so that, when I'm gone, the kids can share this with, have it on the shelf, and then their grandkids or, their grandkids, whatever, they have that, and they can say, hey, this is kind of cool. This is what what this guy was doing. And maybe they'll find something. They'll know a little bit about me, so then they're not doing that, whatever they call those, ancestry.com, or get on the shows of, who am I, where am I from, whatever. So, just a little something. So, anyway, so I've been really working on that. As I thought I was getting close to the end, I had one more section of recipes to upload that I find there's more that I want to tell. More stories, more recipes to share, more stories about the recipes, and just, yeah. So anyway, pretty slow week as far as content wise, but getting some things done. So one other aspect that we were talking about Joshua 4, and it came up in my men's group Friday morning. That was my discussion point. And I'd asked the guys, there was a good handful and a half of us, that, I said, hey, What are you guys doing to preserve your story? So, because life happens, right? If something were to happen to you today, your kids, my youngest one is 20. She has a whole life ahead of her that, just like the Israelites in Joshua 4, a lot happened after them crossing the Jordan. Was the Jordan important? Absolutely, because that was ending the 40 years of being in the wilderness that Moses started. So to bookend their flight from slavery, they had to go 40 years in the wilderness. This is crossing into the promised land, so this is bookending that. And they were tasked to grab these stones, one per tribe, so the 12 stones, and they were to build this altar. And then anytime that their kids, the future generations asked, what is this monument or this altar? What does this mean? They would tell the story of how God stopped the Jordan, how he fulfilled the promise of his people from slavery to the promised land, and all that. But what happened was there was so much that happened after that fact that it got overlooked. And yeah, they did the stuff, and that was great, and they fulfilled the promise, but they didn't remember it because the other stuff that happened was just as monumental, if not bigger, bigger victories. And that's what happens with us. We get busy in our lives, and we forget simple things. We forget the kid's 10th birthday party. I know, sacrilege, but it happens. You forget, simple stuff. How many times have you forgotten your wedding anniversary? I'm not going to say that's happened, but like stuff like that, right? So it happens. We get busy. We forget stuff. Do you remember your grandmother's birthday? Do you even know your grandmother? Now, my kids, when my youngest one was born, within 7 days, her grandpa, my wife's dad, passed away. So my two youngest kids didn't know him. Sad. But how they do know him is we have pictures hanging up. We tell stories about them. And, so then they have an idea who that person was. I talked about my great-grandma Pearl Skillet in the last video. And that Skillet, I didn't know her. And I had to look her up. I mean, it is what it is. My grandpa and I were not really that close as far as we saw each other, but we didn't go hang out all the time. I mean, he helped teach me how to fish and stuff like that. We did some things together, but not everything. And I mean, he was a farmer. That's what he did. So when I was younger, you're going to get hurt when I'm out here in the shop working, rebuilding equipment or whatever. And it was just, there was too many things I could get hurt on, and I was a curious kid, so I was into everything. But, the things that I do remember and I did learn from my grandpa, I hold on to. And I try to pass that on to my kids. And I try to tell them where I learned the thing, whatever it is. Some of my buddies, many years ago, taught me how to change brakes. And I learned, I still hold that, and I still remember that. And I credit them, and I thank the Lord every time that I have to do that they taught me that, because it saves a ton of money. But I was able to pass that on to the girls. They're girls. Yeah, I know. But I don't want them to be dependent on somebody else to do this. So I taught them. And I told them who taught me. So then it's, it's a remembrance and it's carrying it on. So little things, so I'm putting that stuff in this little book, kind of like I don't manifesto, no memoirs. I don't know what to call it yet. What category it's going to go in, I don't know. Some of the stuff in the book is highlights. Some of it's, not. But it is part of me and who I am. So that stuff's going in there. So, but anyway, the discussion Friday came up, and I asked the fellas. One guy said, well, I have a bunch of old photo albums, and I want to take them and get them scanned into the computer. Or, you can send them into a place and they put them on a CD or flash drive, hey, whatever. But I said, here's my question. You do that, and I've had that happen to me way more than once, where you have stuff loaded on a flash drive, and maybe 5-10 years later you go to put that flash drive in, and it's corrupt. It doesn't work. It's too old. All that stuff's gone. We had hard drives go out on our desktops. What do you do then? You can't access any of that stuff then. So we have, I got 2 towers outside in the garage that have a bunch of pictures from when the kids were little that we can't access because the motherboards went out. So that was kind of a good thing, and it was like, well, you have these photo albums, then what do you do with them? Well, my suggestion is, if you can pull them out of the photo album, put a piece of masking tape on the back, write on there who it is. That way you know who it is. That way whoever is reading it 20 years from now can say, oh, well, that's so-and-so, and this is when it was. Great idea. One of the other things came up was the family Bibles. Do y'all have family Bibles? I have one. My wife has one of one side of her family. And I have one that I started for my family, for me and my wife and the kids. And, I've thrown some different things in there, but stuff from us. The only problem that I had with the family Bibles was in a way to preserve it, because what happens is you open that up and there happened to be a young boy with us. One of the guys brought his son. He's probably 9, 10. And I said, hey, let me ask you a question. He was like, me? And I said, yeah. Can you read cursive? No. Okay. So majority of my dad's generation, my grandpa's generation, wrote cursive. So if your kids, my kids, they're in their early 20s, they can't read cursive either. So what happens? Got the family Bible here. And who's that? I don't know. Chuck. We don't know. Let's just empty it out and it's a Bible. Right? So what do we do to combat that? Well, take the time and type it out and print. Why? Because kids in the future will still be able to type. They'll still text, because that is our main way of communication. They'll still be able to do that. So my thought was, keep the old books, keep the old photos. put your tape on the back of them, write on there what they are, post-it notes, whatever. Put them back in there. Leave them lay out on the coffee table or your end table in the kitchen or whatever, or the dining room, whatever. Leave them lay out so people can sort through them. Go through your family Bible and type out, if it's written in cursive and nobody can read it, type it out so it can be universally read for the next generations. Because all that stuff will be lost because they can't read it. It's kind of like everything went to VCR tapes, right? I mean, that was like the greatest thing. How many people had VCR tapes but no machine, right? So then you convert it over to CD. Well, how many computers come with a CD drive nowadays? So just things to think about the generation before you and the generation coming up. There's what can you do to preserve that information? And that was my big spiel from Joshua 4. Really got me thinking, really got me rejuvenated to work on this, and I can tell you I'm spending about easily 4 hours a day working on that. Yeah. This journey through melanoma, man. Here I've been clean or NED since treatments and even through treatments, and I'm still coming up with more. I say things wrong, but things to deal with. I tell my story as a story of hope, that it's not all, hey, you're healed and good to go. There's still a lot of lingering side effects, issues, stuff. So stay strong, my mellow homies, and we will catch you on the next one.